Hey guys, how are you? Welcome. That's Racing.
Episode what?
Episode
number?
19. We've
19.
got the boys from Bullet, Marcus and Darren.
Hello.
Glad you have joined
Welcome,
us.
gents. Welcome.
Flew all the way
Thank you.
down from South Australia for us.
South Australia?
South Australia, down the bottom.
I thought it
Adelaide.
was W. Oh, so it's not WA, it's South Australia.
No,
Yeah.
No, they just tell you WA, so when you're sending parts, it's a bit longer if they're delayed.
That's right.
They've got it under control.
Pay a bit extra in freight as well. What's happening, guys?
Oh, just down here doing some testing on a new product, and
I think we need an introduction for everybody to maybe give us a bit of a background on what you guys actually do.
So if these guys don't know, this is Bullet.
Yeah.
They do
Good
build-up
stuff,
blocks,
right?
bullet race
heads.
engineering.
They do everything. So
Yeah.
talk to us. Where'd you start?
What do you do?
Are you partners? When did this happen?
Yeah, so we both had our own businesses. I had my own business in this industry for maybe 2 years. Marcus had been in the industry for longer. And
Who's older?
I'm older.
Darren.
I'm 2 years older.
Only?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look a lot more, eh? Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's what happens when you take all the responsibility.
Oh, okay.
Sound like someone I know.
So yeah, anyway, I sort of thought, I was looking at what was happening in America, and I saw what they were doing with CNC porting cylinder heads. I know probably the industry was 15, 20 years ahead of Australian industry. Not so much the race cars, they were still ahead of us, but not by that much, but the industry was. And I thought that's what's going to happen here. So I said, I roped him in to mortgage his house, and we got equipment to CNC port heads.
So you guys went all in.
All
Loans
All
and
in.
yeah.
Big loans.
How long ago was this?
2004.
Yeah.
2004.
Oh, wow.
20
years
20 years ago.
ago.
Wow. So you guys have been together
Ballsy.
since then?
Yeah.
Bullet's been around since 2004.
Yeah, so originally it was bullet cylinder heads
Okay.
because we were doing cylinder heads.
Yep.
And even though we were building engines as well, but so yeah. Anyway, we did that, and it sort of didn't work. So we could port ahead, and we were probably the best in the country at it. We had the most programs, and we used to do anything that would come in the door. But and that was the thing. So I knew how to port heads, but Marcus was a specialist at porting heads. That's what he did at his
Previously.
apprenticeship and all that, and had done heads on national record-setting engines and stuff in drag racing.
Okay. So you're a machinist background?
Yeah.
And you were...
I was a fitter and turner
Okay.
by trade, and then I went to university and did economics and real estate, and I didn't like working in that industry, but the cars was my hobby. So then I convinced a guy to sell me his business and teach me everything.
That's crazy. I like that.
And then,
I like the way you did that.
Yeah.
yeah, so anyway, and then after that contract finished after 2 years, and then I did a little bit by myself. And then I thought, well, this CNC porting thing looks like the way it's going to go, but I needed a head porter, someone who was a specialist at it.
So you've
So-
roped some bloke to sell you his business, and now you've roped Marcus in with you.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
100%.
yeah,
That's where the uni degree comes in, huh?
yeah, that's right. And
What was your first reactions into getting roped in?
I was a little bit shocked, actually. So, yeah, I thought about it and thought, we've got to do it. Something I have to do. I mean, that's what we did, cylinder heads mainly, or what I did.
So I guess you
And
both,
that's just the logical next step.
you both bit the bullet and tried it.
Literally.
yeah. So it was basically, well, my sales pitch to him was either we do this or we watch someone else do it.
Yeah.
So we just did it, and it seemed like a bad decision at first because it didn't. We worked for no money for years
What platform were you guys working on at the start?
in the CNC port.
Yeah.
We used it was CNC cylinder heads, and they had a specialist software package called Complete. So the guy's name was Bob Hudgens, and Bob's still alive, but he's probably getting close to 80 now. And he was in military stuff, but he used to race as a hobby. And when they started out CNC porting heads, he looked at it and he saw it was terrible, and he thought, I could do it better than this. So he just started doing it. But the problem, and then he made a turnkey package. So instead of just porting heads and keeping it all to himself, he made a package that if you bought this machine, this scanner, this software, I'll teach you how to do it. And then, so he sort of sold the package to other businesses. But what happened was the software they were using, if you weren't a CAD CAM experienced guy, then you would struggle with it. And he's always on the phone supporting them.
Troubleshooting.
So then what he did was he got this company in Canada called Complete to make software that specifically did it, and it was something that you could teach someone in a couple of weeks how to use, because it only did that, so you didn't have a lot of complexity. And so that's what we bought. And so we had never operated CNC machines. We went to TAFE to learn how to do it, and then even the TAFE lecturer was like, "What, you're doing what? You're buying a 5-axis machine?"
He thought we were crazy.
And even like CAD drawings and all that, you guys had no experience?
None.
Wow.
And how long had CNCs been around at that time?
They've been around for a long time, but what happened was the 5-axis stuff was still new because the computers weren't powerful enough to do it. Like back before, probably 5 years or whatever before we started doing it, you would have to set the computer going at the end of the day and then come in the morning and it would have calculated the tool path. Whereas as the computers and the software got more powerful, you could calculate the tool path in a few minutes. And now with the computers that are even faster, we calculate a tool path in 30 seconds.
Wow.
Right. So that's just how it evolved. So at the time when we started, it was still relatively new. And that was the problem. That's why his deal was good, because it was like a turnkey.
Yeah. Turnkey. Anyone could have a shot at trying to make it work.
Like we were porting heads. He came down to train us. We ported our first head in 8 days.
What type of motor?
I think they were a pair of Windsors. It was a V8.
Yeah, okay.
We only did V8s.
Okay, so it was just the V8 scene back then. You haven't gotten into the
Well,
import scene yet?
that was all our background. We raced V8s. Marcus raced V8s. Most of the work he did was V8s.
Yeah,
drag
racing.
So you guys are into drag racing too?
Yeah, that's what we were
We were
into.
drag racing.
Yeah.
He runs 540s.
Really?
No.
No,
Fucking had me.
definitely not.
Gotcha again.
But I'd done some of the Japanese engines. In particular, I'd done some SRs, and I saw how they were breaking them. And then that was where I mean, even back then, didn't I used to mention it back then, even in 2004, we had someone that was racing a V8 and we were helping him. And I said to him in super stock, and I said to him, "You're crazy." I said, "Get rid of this. We'll make a Billet SR20 and you watch how much business we get." And he didn't want to do it, and it never happened. And then it wasn't until 2010 that we did our first block,
What was your first block?
an SR20.
SR.
Oh, no way.
So you did SRs before RB, before all that?
That was a mistake. But the reason I did an SR is because the block was so weak. I thought, well, this is the obvious one to fix up.
To prove, yeah.
But it's not. It wasn't a popular enough engine.
Uh-huh.
So it wasn't until we did so that was for Ben Bray.
Yeah.
And he set the world record with it. And then we did two Mitsubishis for Colin Wilshire, who was friends with Ben Bray.
Yep.
But those Mitsubishis weren't like, you couldn't put them in an Evo. So we were still,
So the RBs were like the last thing you done.
we did the RB in 2016 when we were ready to pull the pin. We thought this idea is not going to work, and we were ready to give up. And someone approached me to do RBs.
Who was that?
Can't
Was it
say.
anyone we know?
You might as well say it.
Was it anyone we know?
No. Well, some people do here, but it didn't really it didn't really end well. So I'd rather not
yeah,
get
fair
into
enough.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Fair enough.
So yeah, sort of a lot of people got upset, and
Yeah.
So when you did the SR, did it get tested? Did it actually like work straight away, or was there?
Oh,
Like, how did you?
it wasn't ideal because we were still learning, you know, and
But Ben Bray did race, didn't
he raced it, and like I said, at the time he ran the world record with an SR20.
Okay.
What car was that?
I don't know what he. I mean, he was already racing an SR20 in.
he? Wasn't that that's an 1800?
No, I don't know.
Thought it was.
Or he had some sort of chassis car that he was doing it in.
And what kind of power did it make?
I got no idea. That was the trouble. We got no feedback.
Oh, really?
You know,
Yeah,
like you
okay.
had to be the NSA to figure out that it bloody even happened. So it was sort of that's part of the. I mean, not his. I'm not saying it's his fault, but it was like it just didn't get off the ground, and then the dollar was high with the Americans, and so we were very expensive for the overseas market. And but then really it was the RB scene because of what's happening here in Sydney.
Yep.
That it just got to a point where you had the volume that you would actually
Needed.
generate. Because I mean, that was probably we still hadn't generated a profit yet. We're at 2004. We're just making enough money to pay ourselves, but we're getting no return on investment.
Where was the turning point for the business?
Probably
And what motor was it?
it was the RB.
Yep.
So we had that original style of RB, and then when that sort of fell apart with that particular guy,
When you're saying original style of RB, you mean like just your 3-litre block or something?
well, the original design. So it was more
Okay.
basic. It was more. It looked more like a cast RB where the side was just flat and curved.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you looked at it now, it looked like a brick
Yeah,
compared
okay.
to a new model block.
Yeah,
So it's like the
Just the
beta
first
version.
one. Yeah.
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 And I mean, that was part of the issue because it all sort of just got put out there. It was meant to be tested correctly and all that, and it never happened. And they just started selling them. And then, of course, there was some issues and people were complaining and it wasn't getting back to us. So anyway, when that all sort of fell through, then we just stopped and we redesigned them. So we already had a prototype RB26, but I remember even at that point, like we've got something that actually worked, but when we put in another 468 hours just in redesigning it,
Is that in-house or do you
Yeah.
guys have people
Yeah.
overseas working with
No.
you?
No.
All
we
in-house?
do all the design,
Everything's in house.
Yeah.
everything.
Is it you two or do you guys have other people that are
Well, at that time,
doing the CAD drawings?
at
or?
that time, was
At
it
that
just you,
time, there
or-
was just 3 or 4. I think we had one apprentice, and then a friend of mine or a friend of ours actually, who was our lecturer at TAFE, who was a petrol head. He ended up coming and helping us, and then he ended up working for us.
He was actually the one that told us at TAFE that we were crazy.
Yeah,
Oh, that same guy.
yeah,
Same
yeah.
guy.
No
ended
way.
up coming to work for us.
Wow.
Well, actually, that reminds me. Sorry, where we were going with the 5-axis stuff. We were porting that head 8 days after it, after we started training, and he came after work and he's looking at the machine and he was shaking his head. He goes, "I think, guys, it takes them 6 months to get a machine to move like that." He couldn't believe it,
Wow.
but that's how good the package was with the software. And
So was that guy
So it's very
from Australia that sold you that package?
no, he was from Florida.
Florida.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it
Very
was an American.
user friendly by the sounds of it.
It was, but also the main thing with that guy, as soon as I met him, you could tell that he wasn't a shark. You know,
Yeah.
like he was
Genuine.
an honest guy, and I knew that if he told me that's what he was selling me, that's what I was going to get, and that's what we got. So that worked out. But yeah, getting back to
The RBs.
the RBs, so then we once we redesigned the product and then we relaunched it, and then it was just a matter of getting the main guys, which
So this is like version 2 now.
yeah, and then we had the main guys, which was like Anthony and CRD there with Rob Margin
Yep.
and
Where are we now? Time frame.
probably 2018,
2018. Okay.
something like that. I can't remember when Anthony used the first one, but of course, I mean, as everyone knows, with the battle with those guys, once one of them got it, the other one had to, and then
Yep.
they sort of got comfortable with the product, and then everything, all the power, everything jumped, all the power levels jumped. Then, I know other people had used RB, had used aluminium rods in the RBs before, but it wasn't a thing.
It's more the single cam, wasn't it? Or the twin cam as well?
No, in the twin cam, I know Mark Jacobson used to run aluminium rods in his years ago, but, we sort of brought them to the market, and, then guys started to see, oh, hang on a minute, like you can make all this power and the engine's more reliable and so on and so forth.
So what came first, the block or the head development? Because I know that you guys do a fair bit of head work to the RB26 head. So did you just get into that before you decided to do a billet block, or was it? It was.
Yeah.
So the head program was really the first thing to come through for the RB scene for you guys.
You think so? I thought it was a block.
I think we were porting RB26 heads.
No,
back
we
then.
were
Before we did the block.
Once the block started moving, then
we got more heads.
then
Just became
the
a package
attention
deal.
moved to the head as well, and then taking that to the next level as well.
So when you say that you were just porting heads, that's it? Were you doing anything else? Like, were you putting them together? Were you doing the valves?
Anything cylinder head related.
Yeah, okay.
All machining, and
Yeah.
and that's predominantly what we did at the start.
All right.
And that's what the CNC machine was about.
Yeah.
Was CNC porting, and
were you supplying cams back then, or were you just were the customers supplying the cams? Okay. So it was
We're
bit of
building
everything.
engines, we supply all the parts, make the combos up, and we do everything.
Yeah.
Do all your traditional V8s, BMWs, Mercedes, whatever.
yeah, predominantly V8s, but we had the engine dyno. So we were more doing cylinder heads, that side of the machining, not really bottom end machining, just the cylinder head side, and then we'd build the engines, dyno the engines, pick cam profiles.
Wow. Okay.
Sort of design depending on the application of the customer, what he's doing, drag racing, circuit racing, boat racing, dirt racing, whatever.
Okay.
Come up with the engine combination for what they really needed.
Suit the application.
Yeah. So we'd CNC port the heads, and we would send a lot of bottom end machining work out. And then the block side sort of fitted into that. It's just a matter of getting the CNC machine working.
So when was the turning point? Like, when did you realize, okay, fuck, we're onto something here? We've created an awesome block that, like, the first block that you created for the RB.
What, the good turning points or the bad ones? Because there's plenty of bad ones.
Yeah, well, that's racing.
When was the good one? Yeah.
Well, it's more. There was a few things that happened at once. The RB sort of took off. Say, once Anthony and CRD went to war with the RB with the billet blocks, then it was done, right? Because then everyone else
follow suit.
But at the same time, the exchange rate had moved back down into the 70-cent zone, and then all of a sudden we start getting calls from America for the 4G and the SR, and then we made the 2J block and the Hondas. We made all the Hondas, so they're quite big on the B series and the K series. So, like with the advantage of the exchange rate, our products are cheap over there, and it's the same thing as it builds up to the point where you get a critical mass of people using it, then the other people say, well, there's no point in me turning up if I don't have one because you're not in the same game.
Yeah.
So then it sort of forces them to buy it.
Right. What do you reckon the percentage is? Like, what's the American market to the Australian market in terms of sales? Do you sell more here or internationally?
It ebbs and flows. We've sold, I don't think we've ever sold more internationally than our total international. Yeah, we've probably been at 50-50 at some point.
Yeah.
But then America's been slow in the last 12 months, which it's not unusual that they do seem to slow down in an election year because everyone's just waiting to see what's going to happen. So that's sort of come off the ball, and probably the economy's not as good as what it has been in the past.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think everyone's felt that pinch. Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully that's going to turn around now. But you know, I mean, we've still got plenty of work. But then on top of that, like the other side of the business is we've got a full engine reconditioning shop. So
We've grown a lot.
yeah, so now we've got all the bottom end equipment. We've got a crank grinder. We've got everything. So the whole engine doesn't leave.
How big is your guys' shop?
It's about 800 square meters.
Oh, wow, it's big.
Yeah,
Good size.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good size. And how many CNCs do you have?
3.
3. Wow. And they pump out all that.
Are they like how they running like 24/7?
No, just one shift.
One shift, and that shift goes for like 12 hours or something?
No, 8.
8 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've got 2 machines that just make blocks.
Yep.
And then the other machine is the original 5-axis machine we bought in 2004.
You still have that machine?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Same dimension.
It's still going.
That's cool. So, how long will it take you guys to make an RB block?
And it takes about 20, 25 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've got it tuned up pretty good now with the guys that run the CNC machines. They just run them. We'll make maybe 10 at a time and then change to a different block.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So you have that cycle where you're constantly making.
I guess you got to change the
things.
setup of the CNC machine every single time you're doing.
You
a
do,
different
but it's not
block.
much because you use pretty much the same tooling on all of them. It's
Yeah.
the same recipe type thing, and it's mainly just changing the distance between the tailstock and the headstock for the different length billets.
Uh-huh.
So how much billet would you guys go through a month or
Oh, I don't know, a month.
a week?
I know, you know better than me.
We probably do 25 to 30 ton a year.
Wow.
So I mean,
Is there anything coming out that's new billet that you haven't released yet that you want us to try?
Always something new.
Yeah, we're sort of just moving into the cylinder heads now. I mean, we're running out of block, you know, because you have to have a certain amount of popularity to make it feasible.
Mm-hmm.
So we get people that call us all the time. They want us to make a block, just one. And then we tell them that
It's not worth
that's
it.
cost prohibitive. And then they still want to know, so then we give them a ridiculous price and then they go away. But it's just, you know, like there's 1,000 hours in it.
So talk us about the cylinder head. There's no secret that you guys have made and developed a Billet RB cylinder head.
Yep.
26 twin cam?
26 twin cam, yeah. So tell us about that. How did that come about, and
Probably talk to them about this.
where's it at, and what are your thoughts and
Well, the
predictions?
first hit we did was a 2J.
That's right.
Billet?
And we've sort of put that aside to put the RB in front.
Okay.
And
And we're still not in front.
still not in front. Are you always behind?
Well, the 2Js are
2J's
hard
number
to
one
catch
in
at
the
the
world.
moment.
The TJs are hard to catch. Oh, well, that's
No,
why maybe we put the RB first.
He meant
Help you guys
it.
out.
He meant it in terms of in the job in front, like the 2J. The problem with the 2J was that we made so many changes that we needed custom inlet manifolds, custom valves,
Exhaust manifold. Yeah,
just-
yeah.
okay.
Everything was custom. Yes.
and we don't make manifolds, and so it was like,
I told someone not to.
and so anyway, it just sort of died on the vine, and then we thought, well, we better do the RB, and then there was sort of stories floating around that other people were doing it. I thought we better get our act into gear. So we'd done the single cam.
single cam one
We'd
first,
done the
yeah.
single cam for a long time, and sort of COVID killed that a little bit because sort of everything shut down, and then it's got going again now, and
That's gone really well on CK's car. So
Yeah.
gone a 660.
660.
660.
Oh,
Yeah.
is he using one of you guys' heads?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That car's impressive.
Yeah, man.
And he's been doing it
impressive.
for a while too. So,
Yeah.
you know, it shows
So that's
that it's capable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a complete bullet package, right? Like block, head, cam,
And you guys sell that at the
rods,
moment to the public?
pistons.
Yeah, that's an RBX
Yeah.
with a single cam head.
RBX 3.4?
Two.
2.
Yeah, 3.2, but just with the RBX crank and just with an 87 mil bore.
87 mil bore.
Yeah, so
When you
it
say
keeps at
RBX
3.2.
crank, you're talking about the bigger, like 2J style crank?
Yeah, so it's
It's like a hybrid.
it's a
Let's clarify it.
yeah. We need to clarify.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's do
because
that.
everyone says that it's a bit Honda, a bit 2J, a bit RB.
We're about
You
to
guys,
find.
because the people that you guys just don't understand. Look, hear it from them.
100% Ashraf's right.
I already know what it is. I know what
know.
he's talking about.
You know the
Ashraf,
specs.
tell us.
Ashraf knows the
Yeah,
specs.
please.
of the
You
league.
can't-
You tell us, and
Yeah.
we'll correct you.
Yeah.
You
go.
can't.
Tell us about it.
Okay,
Ash.
you can't put this 2J crank
Yeah.
that they call a 2J crank for the RB in a 2J.
It's
It
not
won't
a
work.
2J crank.
Because it's not a 2J crank. It's an RB crank
an
with
RB
2J bearings,
Main
Really?
bearings.
main bearings.
There you go.
You can't
Look
use
at that.
it in a 2J.
Yeah.
Mate,
And Honda rod
did you
bearings.
ask these questions
Honda
before
rod
we
bearing.
started?
No, I just know this from the start because
I
I'll
feel
stay
like
quiet.
this is a setup.
I'm just a mechanically minded guy.
Yeah,
I just-
definitely. We all say that at the track.
Yeah,
am I right?
you're correct. So
Thank you. Can you get an apology?
Sorry.
Apology.
I didn't doubt you. I just want to hear it from you.
Apology.
What for?
He wants
I never
an
doubt
apology.
Just say sorry.
I'll say sorry.
That's it. You said it.
Just say sorry.
Say sorry.
He just said sorry.
I'm
He'll just keep
sorry
going,
too.
and the podcast will go nowhere.
So, do you want me to bore you with
Yeah.
how we come up with it?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do. I want to hear
Okay.
this. This is very.
All right.
It's a good crank.
So, if you have a look at a 2J crankshaft, getting back to the 2J, so the 2J was a 3-litre twin turbo engine. So, the engineers at Toyota, they've designed the crankshaft for that engine that they expected that power level. If you look at an RB30 crankshaft, the RB30 was a single cam. It's like effectively, without insulting anyone, it was for a taxi, right? And what happened is all you guys have put twin cam heads on it and make all this power with it. So if you actually look at an RB crank, it's exactly the same as an RB26 crank with a longer stroke, and then they add more material to the big end, not to the main bearing. Because then they have to spend more money changing their castings for the block and so on and so forth. So they're looking at how much it's going to cost them to do it, and they don't need to make the crank more beefy because it's a single cam. It's going to make whatever it made, 130, 150 horsepower. So big deal. So we're not because we're looking at the engines and I'm looking at the 2J crank, I said, oh, look what the engineers have done here. So then in 2018, when I went to Orlando and they'd approached me, George Lano had approached me through, George didn't speak English, so he'd approached me through someone else, and he said that he wanted to run an RB, because he was a Nissan guy, even
Sorry,
though...
let's just back up for a sec because I don't think a lot of people know who Loscano was.
I was going to ask that question.
I do.
I don't.
Yeah.
Do you give them a quick rundown about who Loscano is? You'll know who he is once.
I know who he is.
You know who he
I
is?
have no
Yeah.
idea who he is.
Okay, so George Loscano had Loscano racing engines, and he's Puerto Rican, and he and it's not like I knew him that well, but he most of the world record 2J engines at the time were out of his stable, and he he was well respected by all the guys, and he'd achieved a lot, but he was a Nissan man. And he raced a Nissan personally, even though all his customers raced Toyotas. And he was using a VG30 or VG35, whatever, the V6 engine. And because of the way the V6 crankshaft's designed, you can't put enough material in between the journals to give it enough strength. And so he was constantly breaking crankshafts. And they don't have any experience with an RB engine because it never came out over there. And when Colin brought him over to race, the Puerto Ricans, he had a look at the engine when he was there. And then when I saw him on the return leg in Orlando, he asked me he wanted to change to an RB. And I said to him, look, I got this idea that I want to put a 2J main bearing in the RB block. I want to make a special block, and I'll talk to Cullies and get Cullies to make a crank for it. And then I checked with him because I wasn't sure. I said, are you running the Honda journal on the big end in the 2Js? And he said, yes, we are. So when you say the Honda journal, what that means is it's actually a Honda/Chev performance bearing that was originally developed for NASCAR. So it's a Honda diameter, but it's a wider bearing. And so I thought, all right, well, that's how we're going to make the crank. So there's no point in reinventing the wheel here. So we're going to make the crank like that, and we're going to put a bigger snout on it because they had issues with the snout flexing and snapping because it's too small. And so that's how that came about. And then we delivered the two engines the two cranks and the two blocks to George, and then he did the rest.
So these are like prototypes at the moment,
Yeah, I mean,
kind of.
all I had
Did
to
you guys do any testing at your factory or anything?
No, we just moved the studs out, and because we had a bigger hole, we
We're
had to move the
extremely
studs out, and then put the put bigger, more material under the caps because the hole's bigger. So there was a few little changes there, and then and in the meantime, George has bought himself a cast RB, and he started mocking it up in the car to get it ready. And I mean, we had an interruption with COVID, and there was some parts that were late, and he didn't make it to World Cup that year because we were within a few weeks. But like that guy,
Isn't he the world's first RB?
he's the first
First
5
5-second RB.
which he ran at World Cup the following year.
Yeah.
5'9"
First
or
guy
something.
to run a 5 in an RB.
Wow.
Yeah. And, it's a hell of an achievement because he hadn't even seen that engine. 12 months, 18 months before, he had never even seen that engine.
He didn't even know what it was.
18 months, he'd figured out the engine and run a 5 with it.
Wow.
So, and then unfortunately he went in for, I think it was kidney stones, and he passed away in the recovery room.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't
that's
that long
sad.
ago, was it?
That was not long after. I think
Yeah.
World Cup was in October, and that happened in November.
Crazy.
Yeah. Crazy.
So, he was only, I think, 50 years old.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he was a legend of the import scene in the 2J world, especially and in Puerto Rico, pretty much around the world. But then
He put RBs on the map.
he
His
put
first
RBs on the map,
5-second RB.
100%.
Wow.
100%.
Well, he did in the US, yeah. And I mean, the thing was that's what he said. He wanted to be the fastest Nissan in the world, and he did it.
Yeah.
So
Sure
it was
did.
good, and it was good. He did it with an RB.
Yeah,
Good on
and
him.
with the help of you guys, obviously. So
Yeah,
So how'd you get the name Bullet?
I don't know.
I've always wanted to
question.
know.
I think he came up with it
I think,
because it used to be bullet cylinder heads.
yeah. Well, the
how'd you get
bullet was
bullet?
well. It's just represents something fast,
Yeah.
Oh,
and that's
I
us.
didn't even think about that.
We're fast at everything.
Oh.
So, and yeah, just like the idea and
Yeah.
that.
nice.
But it was bullet cylinder heads at first.
But see, we actually didn't. That hurt our business as a marketing thing.
What
because
did?
having the name bullet cylinder heads, because people didn't send us engines, even though we
Yeah,
did
okay.
engines.
Yeah.
Right, so then we changed it to Bullet Race
Race
Engineering, which
Yeah.
sort of covered everything.
So how do you guys feel, obviously, about, there's the two worlds, right? Where people say cast is fast, and you guys obviously say cast isn't fast.
Ain't
You-
fast.
Ain't
Ain't fast.
Can you
sorry.
say it properly,
Sorry,
please?
cast ain't fast. No stories.
Hashtag IHM.
And then you've got, other competitors in the market at the moment, like PRP, that are trying to develop the cast head and,
And block 2.
and block and swear that it's going to be better than the billet. And then you look at sort of the Puerto Ricans, or you look at the fastest import in the world at the moment, it's still running a cast head. So what made you so adamant and sure that you should go down the road and build a billet head and it compared to, sticking to the cast?
Well, first of all, like cast ain't fast is a marketing phrase,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't mean that you can't have a cast engine that's fast, but everything has its place in the market. So, I mean, you look at the V8 market and you have a plethora of Dart cast blocks, and then you have the top end, it uses a billet block. And depending on the class, what you're allowed to use, and so on and so forth. So there's upsides and downsides. So while you can make a cast block, and I'm sure the PRP cast block, it'll be strong and it will do what it's meant to do, but you've got a weight problem. Right?
Okay. So, is
So
that,
to make a cast block, to make a cast
what's
iron
your
block stronger,
what's your, forget the specifics and why it makes sense on paper. What made you guys, besides that, stick to billet? Is it just purely because you guys did billet and you guys are known to do billet everything, or
The bling.
is there an
It's all
actual theory behind it that?
No, there's not a theory behind it, but the thing is, if you want to do a casting, then it's a whole different procedure. So you've got to go through and you've got to make patterns, and then you've got to do all this stuff. So you have to put a lot of money in up front, and then after you've put that money in, then each unit is much cheaper to produce.
Yep.
So we didn't have any money. But we had the equipment and the software to make billet, and then all the billet stuff was what the height, like top fuel. And so basically we saw, well, there's all these billet blocks for the V8 market, but there's nothing for the import market, and these guys are cracking these blocks in half as they keep putting more and more boost in them. Turbo technology keeps improving, keep making more power. So I just thought, let's just make a billet block for this application and see if it works. We didn't know whether it would work or not. And so
So
it's
do you
just
think it'll be
evolved
better?
from
Do you
there.
think it's going to be better than the cast?
Yes.
Well, I think it's better, yeah.
You got to back yourself.
Yeah,
That's
100%.
100%.
Well, there's,
Well, think
Well,
about
it's
it.
what we do now.
Yeah.
That's what we are. We do billet
Yeah.
blocks. We
Yeah.
do billet products.
Yeah.
it's
So
lighter.
it's just logical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's lighter, it's stronger, and
It'll
it's-
make more
it's-
power.
It's repairable,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that, well, like if you want 1,000 horsepower street car, I'm not saying, well, I would like you to get a billet block, but I'm not saying you have to.
Yeah.
The cast block is perfectly applicable to that. So it's a personal
that's right.
choice.
Yeah.
And of course, the cast one will be probably less expensive.
Well,
But
we build just as many cast engines as
Yeah.
billet engines.
yeah.
No, fair enough.
And
That's
then, but when it
understandable.
comes to the head, so the fastest car in the world currently uses a cast head, and that might be because that's all that's available. But the point is, for how long? So how many passes do they get out of it? And so it's the same even with the billet blocks. Like you can say, well, I have to spend 3 times what I would spend doing up a standard block, but if the engine fails and you crash the car, the billet block was cheaper.
Yeah.
And it's the same with the cast head. Like you spend all this money building the car, towing it to the track, you got all this racing expense, and then you go out there and then you spend all weekend changing cylinder heads because every 2 passes you crack a head,
Yeah.
right? So is it cheaper to buy the
Oh,
billet
look,
head?
there's no doubt that, once the billet block came out, it changed the game and changed the amount of power we can
100%.
make and reliability. But yeah, it's just good to know your side of the story because I've heard it from other competitors and everyone has their own theory.
Yeah. And aren't we there now with cracking heads?
Yeah.
Well, that's the
I'm
issue
starting to
now.
think
Well,
it's happening.
the head's the weak point now, isn't it?
Definitely.
I think so.
So, I guess maybe we should go back to the topic on the billet heads. Where are you guys at with the RB26?
Transfer some
Okay.
money and you have a head.
So we have
Yeah.
we have the cylinder head in testing.
Yeah.
So it's been delivered to our customer, and so they're about to test it. And
So this is just getting tested now, like recently.
yeah, we should see it. We should see it on the dyno and on the track hopefully within the next 2 weeks.
Oh, cool. That is going to be pretty cool.
So we've sort of done some preliminary testing.
Do we know
in the
what
shop.
car?
Can't tell you. Secret. He won't tell us.
Oh,
No.
No,
Off the seal.
they want to
fair enough.
Confidentiality.
Okay.
keep it under wraps and make sure that everything's
first.
working
Yeah.
first.
It's
But
saying that the billet block work, their head's going to work.
Is there
we would think so, yeah.
Is there
I like
anything?
your confidence.
Is there anything you guys
it's
are
done by the
worried
same
about
person,
in the
it's gonna
testing?
work.
Like, do you think there's?
Everything.
Is-
It might have too much power.
Do you still think there's maybe a little bit of work that needs to be done, or you're not too sure? Or?
No, we're pretty confident.
Okay.
We're pretty confident. But it's like
Yeah.
anything, it's new ground.
Yeah.
And we have to walk across it and fix all the
Usually
little
they're right.
things
No.
and do our revisions. And
no one's done it.
Yeah.
So that's the issue, is that we don't know because we can't even look at someone else
Yeah,
and say,
compare
oh,
it.
well, they've done this. And then there's nothing, even if you went and looked at what someone else has made and worked which can give you some ideas. So
Yeah.
we've done everything that we know how a cylinder head works and all that. And so then it just comes down to whether there's something that we haven't taken into account or whatever, and there's so many variables. I mean, it could come down to something going wrong elsewhere on the engine,
Yeah.
so
You might create another weak point, I guess.
Speaking of that, obviously you guys can assemble an engine for a customer from scratch and give it to them pretty much as a long engine, or you can give it to them in bits and pieces. When you assemble engines, or when you see issues that come back with, like from engines from people that have assembled themselves, what are some of the most important things when you assemble an engine? What do you think some of the big mistakes or things that people do wrong
The rocker covers.
that you see that cause the issues?
Oh,
well,
tuning.
Tuning's the biggest thing, because once it's out of your control, then and then of course, the tuners don't want to take responsibility, and
Bit of pass the bucket, is it?
What about in terms of assembly?
it can be, but in assembly, I mean, the thing is to, I think there's a lot of confusion with people with they talk about tight clearances, right? And so they're getting confused with tight tolerances. They're two different things. So you have a clearance. So when you're machining something, and people that never operate a machine, they don't understand that if you say to someone, I want 3 thousandths clearance between, say 3 thousandths piston to bore clearance, that doesn't mean you're going to get 3 thousandths, because there's a tolerance. So you say, is my tolerance plus or minus
50, 100, whatever.
2 10,000ths of an inch? So I'm going to be between 2.8 thou and 3.2, right? Because you can't hit it, all right? So when people talk about blueprinting or like better assembly than what you would get at the factory, what we're talking about is tight tolerances. So instead of a factory tolerance might be plus or minus 2 thou, our tolerance would be plus or minus 2 10,000ths. Our tolerance might be plus or minus 1 10,000ths. So that's in terms of putting the engine together. You're measuring everything. We're miking everything up using dial ball gauges, not assuming that someone else has done something correctly. And in our shop, usually the guy that's putting the engine together is the same guy that's machined it.
Yep.
And then you come down to just your general assembly thing and how you do that. So what procedure you go through to make sure that you haven't made a mistake, and it's not by rechecking everything. It's just the procedure of putting it together. You're rechecking stuff as you're putting it together, and then just going through the motions, making sure that the camshaft's in the right spot. You're looking at your valve geometry when you're running rocker arms, how the valve tip, like that stuff that you see missed sometimes when an engine comes in and you see the valve guides are worn and the pattern on top of the valve is over to one side, because they're just bolting parts together. They don't really know what they're doing, and they're not looking at it and saying, have I got the correct length push rod, and is the valve tip, is the roller tip landing correctly in the correct pattern on the top of the valve? Because that's, the more complicated stuff, guys aren't seeing it. So
I don't know if these guys know push rods. Do you know push rods?
Yeah.
I remember
Okay.
them.
Just checking.
Old V8 engines.
I used to build them.
In the old days.
Yeah. So, you just get different stuff like that. But I guess the biggest thing I get is the guys, they'll call up and they've melted a piston or they've torched a head, and then they'll say, and then something turns up, like the engine turns up, and then it will be, but I didn't see anything on the logs. And my response is, it doesn't matter what the log says. You've got to look at what the parts are telling you. The parts are telling me that you've detonated this engine. So 9 times out of 10, the engine will fail because of detonation.
So tuner mistake.
Tuner.
It can be a tuner, but it could be that
Driver.
an injector is blocked
Mechanical failure.
Yeah.
or trigger wheel screwed up.
So many factors.
Yeah.
There's so many
Lot of
things.
variables.
Put it, in
So
first,
many.
put it in first gear while you're driving. Everything.
Yeah.
It's
That's
not always-
definitely a notable cause.
It's not always a human error.
Yeah.
You know, like we do a blow-on engine for a door slammer style car, and he took off in top gear, and you know, just destroyed it because it just detonated it because he's loaded the engine.
Yeah.
Up.
Wow.
So you know, there's different reasons.
You haven't
for
done that
it.
yet, have you?
No, I've taken off in low gear, but then put it back to low gear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Back to the just question with the 26 head. Let's just say testing goes good, everyone's happy. When
You're not getting one, Romanos.
how fast are you guys looking at putting it on the market?
Well, after number 20 gets made, because we're going to take the first 10.
I'm coming straight to your shop to take one.
I'll get you one. No.
Thanks, Ash.
Me and my mate Darren.
Thanks, brother.
Double the price there.
We've worked it out already.
Probably we
January.
would think 3 months.
Okay.
So yeah, probably
Time
sort
frame's
of
pretty
End
quick.
of January.
late February,
I already
Yeah.
know.
March.
February.
We'll have something.
Are you guys making your own cam for this head too, or is that just off the shelf?
No, the cams are special because they're different. So they won't go in an RB26 cast
Larger
head.
journal.
Oh, okay. So everything's.
They're
Everything's
bigger.
Bigger.
custom
So
made.
now you
Wow.
buy it complete to suit your.
Yeah.
Oh, do you?
the-
Oh, so it's
the-
gonna be
the-
a full bolt-on.
We'll
pack.
be selling the heads.
Oh wow, with
assembled.
Complete.
Oh no way,
complete with the
Yeah.
cams.
So for
Valve,
like your
springs,
manual
cam,
car, you have
buckets.
that's cool.
to go faster than.
And then will you guys be like recommending like different intakes with your guys' head, or because I'm going to assume they're going to be ported?
No, that was the other reason the RB
What do you mean?
was
intake?
quicker to market.
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
Like, what are you talking about?
Intake
Plenums?
manifold.
Yeah, the intake. Yeah, the intake.
No, the intake manifold pattern is the same. So you can
the
take
same,
any current intake manifold and put it on this head.
And the size will be this is the same, or is it customer preference?
It's
or-
probably a little. It might be a little bit bigger, so you might have to. You
Yeah.
could port the
Yeah,
intake
give it a bit of
manifold a
a
little
trouble.
bit.
Yeah.
But
You'll be right. Don't worry.
it's not that much. We still only got the 1 mil over valve in it because we managed to change the intake port shape because the water isn't in the way, like the cast head. Now we've got the intake port more efficient that we managed to pick up the flow that we needed without going to a bigger valve.
Oh,
which
really?
is important.
That's cool.
So we got a lot of
That's
airspeed
really cool.
in there.
I got one more question before we wrap it up because I know you guys are going to get to the airport real soon. Do you think you'll ever develop rods that will be suitable for both applications, like drag racing and, for example, roll racing? Because I know we can't use alloy rods at roll racing.
Why can't we? Can we?
You can, but you can't.
you just service
Yeah.
service
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
You don't have
as
the
well.
longevity.
But there already is. You can buy titanium rods.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, but
Is that like is that like a good in between?
Well, titanium rod is
It's going to be lighter.
It's light, but it's more it's
not
sort of
expensive.
in between.
It's expensive.
The size of it is in between a steel rod
Everything
and a
with
aluminium
GDRs,
rod.
right?
No,
expensive.
no. Titanium rods are very expensive.
How
Everything's
expensive are they?
expensive.
About $7,000 a set.
GDR
Probably more like
double.
8 now.
Yeah,
It's like double. Yeah.
Triple.
And that will serve the same purpose as having sort of both applications. In
Yeah,
one.
we've built one engine with them,
Why haven't I heard about these?
which I think we spoke about,
There was in the car I was on a buy before.
Which one?
the purple one.
Purple 34. Remember King JDM?
Oh, does that have titanium rods in it?
Yeah.
3.6
That's a
litre titanium
3.6 that we
rods.
built.
Is that a Kelly's?
That's a Cali 3.6
That's
that
an
we
up,
built.
yeah.
Oh.
with titanium rods.
What
in
kind
it.
of power could you make with them rods?
That car made
Oh, I don't
1450
know.
and it was a cruiser.
Yeah. You could make the sort of power that you make with the steel rods, I would have thought.
2000.
So what's the advantage? If it's going to make the same power,
Because
why
they're,
pay?
they're, they're
Weight.
similar
the
weight.
weight, okay.
Yeah, they're a similar weight as an aluminium rod, but then they're sort of more closer to strength than as a steel
Yeah,
rod
yeah.
is,
Durability of a steel rod, but with less
with the
weight.
weight of an aluminium rod type
can, I,
thing. Yeah.
can I get a set?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So now you've got them. You've got the head coming in February.
Yep.
He doesn't have a head in February. He
I've
wishes.
booked in a head in February. And the block, I'll send him the invoice via you.
Bit of GST taxes and stuff like that.
Thanks, mate.
Well, Bullet.
That was cool.
Thank you for
That was,
coming.
awesome, actually.
I know you
Thanks for
delayed your
having us.
flight to
Darren
come.
and Mark, thank you very much for coming
Appreciate
in. We appreciate it.
Anyone need billet blocks?
Anyone need any billet stuff, RB related or anything related billet?
Or engines built that aren't built.
Jump on socials,
And
jump
they're
on their
do-
website.
As of
give them
next
a
year,
call.
they're doing gearboxes, but haven't said nothing.
No, they're not.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
No.
You might have to do a one-off for Ashraf.
It'd be nice tech. Get payments.
No, look,
We're next door to PPG, so you can just
Oh.
go there and get one.
Yeah. No, thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
That was
also,
awesome.
I appreciate all the support that you've given me with all what we're trying to do. Thank you very much. Billet is one of our sponsors, so thank you for the support. We appreciate it. And anyone that needs
worries.
any
Sponsorship?
Billet stuff, no sponsorships, we'll leave that alone. Head over to billet.com.au, is it? Or what's your
Bullet
website?
Race Engineering.
BulletRaceEngineering.com.au and
Yeah.
start shopping and buy your stuff.
No worries.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
guys.
Thanks,
See you
fellas.
later.
See ya.